In this video, we will look at how to write in expanded form when there are negative numbers and there is subtraction. Let's start with an example. So let's take -3 times the expression. I'm going to stick with different colors. So 4x plus 5y. Let's first represent this using the area model. I like the area model because it makes a lot of sense. So let's start with the area model. Let's draw it here. Suppose I have a rectangle and the two sides of the rectangle are -3 and the other side is 4x plus 5y. And the area of this rectangle would be -3, which is one side, times 4x plus 5y, which is the other side. Now, what if we were to split this rectangle into two parts? Let's call this the green room. Here we go. And this one is the pink room. Okay. And how would we find the area of each of these rooms? So let's say we have this is the length and this is the width. So the area of this green room would be -3, which is one side, times 4x, which is the other side. And the area of the pink room would be -3 times 5y, because those are the two sides of the rectangle. And if we were to find the area of this entire rectangle, we could simply add the areas of these two little rectangles, and that would be -3 times 4x plus -3 times 5y. So what we have essentially done is taken the factor outside and multiplied it with every term inside. So -3 times 4x plus -3 times 5y. And if you were to simplify this even further, -3 times 4x is -12x. Remember, negative times positive is negative, plus -3 times 5y is -15y. And again, we can rewrite this as -12x. And if you see a plus negative, you can write that as a minus positive. So you can write this as -15y. And that would be the expanded form of this expression. Let's try another example. Before we write this in expanded form, let's represent this using the area model. So imagine that this is a rectangle and one side is -5 and the other side is 2a minus 7b. The way you would find the area of this entire rectangle is by doing length times width. So you would do -5 times 2a minus 7b, and that is essentially this expression. Now let's split up this rectangle into two parts. Let's call this the green rectangle and let's call this the pink rectangle. So what are the sides of these two rectangles? If this side is -5, this side is also -5. This side here is 2a. And then we are going to rewrite this as -7b. So essentially we wrote 2a minus 7b as adding the opposite. We wrote this as 2a plus -7b. So the area of this green rectangle is -5 times 2a And the area of the pink rectangle is -5 times -7b. So what we did is we rewrote the subtraction as adding the opposite. The 2a stays as it is and the minus becomes plus, and instead of 7b we have -7b. So the area of the two rectangles put together would be -5 times 2a plus -5 times, here we go, times -7b. And if we simplify this even further, we would get -5 times 2a is -10a plus -5 times -7b is +35b. And this is the expanded form of this expression here. Let's try two more examples. What do we have here? We have negative of the expression -6a plus 7b. You'll notice that there is no number here in the factor outside. In this case, we can rewrite this as -1 times -6a plus 7b. And then we can distribute the -1 to each of the terms inside. So that would be -1 times -6a plus -1 times +7b. And then -1 times -6a is +6a plus -1 times 7b is -7b. And we can simplify this even further by writing this as 6a minus 7b. Now another way you can think of this is when you have negative of this expression, you can basically take the opposite of every term inside the parentheses. So opposite of -6a is +6a, and the opposite of 7b is -7b. Now let's look at the next example. So we have -12 times the expression 8x minus 10y. The first step we'll take is to rewrite this minus as adding the opposite. So -12 times 8x plus. So we change the minus to plus and we'll change the 10y to -10y. And now let's distribute this -12 to each of the terms inside. So -12 times 8x plus -12 times -10y. And -12 times 8x is -4x plus -12 times -10y. Negative times negative is positive. Half times 10 is basically like 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So 5y. So this is the expanded form of this expression -12 times 8x minus 10y.